Hey guys, it's Lisa and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to make some DIY scrap wood pumpkins. And I love working with scrap wood because it's usually very readily available for most of us. Most of us have little pieces of wood that we've cut off another project, or if you don't have it, there are construction sites all around us usually because way too many subdivisions are going in, and they will almost always give you their scrap pieces of wood. They'll usually have them laying out in the yard, and if you ask if you can have them, usually they'll let you pick up as many as you want. And you have all kinds of options for these pumpkins. This one is a 2x6. That works really well. As you can see here, I have some landscape timbers that I've cut into lengths, and also some 4x4s cut into lengths. You can use old bedposts. There's just so many things that you can use as far as wood goes for these pumpkins. So I'm base coating everything, and I wanted a dark color, and I would go with a dark brown, or even a dark gray would work. But because pumpkins have green in them somewhat, this is a color from Dixie Belle called collard greens, and it's hard to even tell that it's green because it's so dark. But it just kind of gives them that green tint underneath, and I just felt like that would work good. So that's what I'm using here. Again, your base color, as long as it's dark, doesn't really matter that much. And you might notice that this paint is going on really well, and that's because I have watered it down, so I probably have almost half water to half paint on this, so that saves you some paint, and then it just kind of covers it really well. And then you're going to see a little bit of your wood grain through it that way also, which to me is a good thing. Some of these I've drilled holes in the top to add stems to. Most of them I haven't. Most of them I'm just going to glue it with a good glue, either E6000 or a good wood glue, and then just not even worry about drilling the holes at all. Now I wanted a set here. You don't have to have a set, or you could have a set of 2 instead of 3, or you could just have these separate. But I've cut each one just a little bit shorter than the first, and that will give me a good little set that will display well together. Now, although I don't want these all the same color, I do want them to go together as a set. So I'm going to add some orange, which this is a Dixie Belle color also, called terracotta. And if you want more of a brighter orange, that's fine. Or if you want to paint these solid, that's also fine. These are very versatile, and most of you know, I like things to be aged looking, and I like to have a lot of variation and a lot of even a lot of sometimes texture. But I'm just very lightly going over this with the terracotta color, purposely leaving some of that dark showing through. And I'm going to do that with all 3 of these. And I want to go with the wood grain on all sides, but then when you get to the top, it doesn't matter because that wood grain is cut there. So just cover that somewhat and let a little bit of that show through if you like them the way I do. So again, I put a coat of this on all of these, and then let those dry somewhat. You don't have to let them dry completely because we're going to be kind of blending colors. Now when I change colors here, I'm not going to worry with even cleaning my brush. Now I'm going to have a paper towel handy if I have too much of that color left on my brush, that I can kind of dry it off. But because I want this to blend somewhat, then I'm not even gonna change brushes or clean it. Now on my palette here, I have a couple of different colors of green. I think one is English Ivy, one is Weeping Willow, and then a white. And I'm just gonna paint some of these colors over the top of this. And again, I've got different colors on my brush, so it doesn't really matter that I'm not cleaning it. I'm just kind of brushing that on. Don't worry at all about getting too much of a certain color, like I have in places, because we're just going to be layering this. And if we get too much of one color and we think it doesn't look good, then we can always go back over that with the orange that we started with. So pumpkins are just, to me, the funnest thing in the world to paint because they are extremely forgiving, and it just seems like the more layering that you get on them, the better they look. Now the colors that you use are, again, just totally up to you. Some people even like some teals in their pumpkins, and I feel like there was a time when that was really popular, maybe not so much anymore. And I love the white pumpkins. I think they'll always be a big thing, but as far as teal, I just never have been a big fan. So again, if you want to add even just a little bit of that, and sometimes even though I'm not a big fan of teal, I will add just a touch of a lighter teal, and that actually looks really pretty with the orange. Now don't worry that these will look a mess, because again, you're just layering more and more color on them until you get them the way you want them. Now, although I'm not going to skip through this process because I feel like you need to see all the layering that's happening, but I am speeding through it so that it doesn't take too long in the video. And now I'm adding a stem out of some sticks that I found in the yard that I've cut into lengths. And I'm just gluing that on with some E6000 and a little hot glue. The E6000 will have a very strong hold, and the hot glue, I'll just put a little bit of that on in order to hold it in place while that dries. And now I want to give these somewhat of a shabby chic look, and this is actually the reason for adding the white into all of these is I wanted to cut some strips of lace and some strips of torn fabric and make some shabby bows to go on the top of these. And what I do to make these is just layer some different fabrics together, some different little strips of fabric. These are probably about 4 inches long, but I'm going to do some trimming where it's needed. And I'll layer probably about 6 of these and then tie them together with a string and glue that on top of the pumpkin. Again, I've just tied these together with another strip of fabric and trimmed them to be a little bit more uniform and then glued them to the bottom of the stem. I also sealed my paint with a clear matte finish from Dixie Belle, and then I stamped some scripture on some cardstock and added a hang tag. Now this is one of the 4x4s that I have just sanded and painted, and I'm going to use one layer of a napkin to decoupage on this one. Now all napkins come with at least one extra layer that isn't printed on, and you only need the printed layer. Most, however, do have 2 extra additional layers, so if you don't get those extra layers off, then your image won't lay down the way you want it to. So I'm just going to put this on all sides, and I just cut this to fit 2 sides at a time, and then I added another one to the other 2 sides. And I can just glue a stem to the top of this one the way I did the other one, or I can drill a hole in the top and add it down into that. Another way you can make pumpkin decor from scrap wood is just to take a small piece of scrap wood. You could do this on a larger one if you wanted, but just any size will work for this. You're just going to paint a little pumpkin. And I know to some of you it may sound like it's a bigger job than I make it sound, but I think that you'll see in watching me here that this is a very simple thing to paint. Now you could draw this out first, and I'm going to attach a video where I showed how to draw a pumpkin very easily, but I'm just going to paint it as I go. And so I'm just drawing out my shape with paint. Now I'm doing a dark color underneath. This one is just a brown of some sort, but I'm just going to paint that oblong area there in the middle, and then I'm going to draw a section off from the side that attaches to where I've done my stem. And the stem, you could just do a short straight stem if you wanted. And then I'm going to add another section off that one. And this other section needs to come up just slightly higher than the one before. And then you'll do a couple little humps off that in the back, if that makes sense. And I'm sorry, I'm not much on technical words, but I just know in my head what I do, and I just kind of draw those two little humps in the back. Now, this is going to have to be, like I said, painted over again, because you're kind of losing these little sections when you do all of this in the dark paint. So you just kind of have to do that again as you go with your other colors. So again, you just do that extra section there. On this one, I'm just going to do one more section in the back. As you can see, it just attaches to the back of the stem and then attaches to the side of the pumpkin. And that will create your little sections in the back. And now that I have my shape here, then I can start adding other colors. And if you don't like the shape on the outside, then you can just add to it. And this is the great thing about these pumpkins, is you can just keep layering. Now I've added a little bit of white to my brown, and that's where I added some little lines in my stem, and you want kind of flowy lines in that stem. And now I'm just adding some of these colors into my pumpkin. And I change brushes when I start adding other color in, but from here on out I don't really change brushes or wash them. I just wanted that dark off because the dark would overpower some of the other colors. So all that I did was wash the brush after I used my base coat. And you can just keep adding these colors in until you get the look that you want. As you can see, the highlighting that I'm doing on the stem creates more of a realistic look. Now this could be turned into a little ornament. I know some people do actual Thanksgiving trees. I'm not one of those. But you could do this on a larger board and use it as a shelf sitter, or you could add a hanger to the back and make a wall hanging. There's just a number of uses for these depending on the size that you use. And fencing board is really good to use because it's very lightweight, so you can just cut sections of that and then sand it and then do your painting on that. So you could paint a background or a scene here, but because this is so small, all I'm going to do is just paint a pumpkin, just one single pumpkin. And so I just add all the orange that I want in, and I'm leaving enough of that brown behind so that I have some depth in my color and some layering of color. And then I'll start to add some other colors in. I like to add some greens sometimes, and even some lighter teals are pretty in this. So this is just, there is no rules to this really, because if you mess up, you just keep painting over the top of it with other colors, and you can let each step dry if you want. I usually don't. I usually just kind of add these in. It probably is a good idea to let that darker coat in the back somewhat dry so that you don't make your paint all muddy. But as far as these other colors that I'm adding in, all that I do is just keep, I may even take a paper towel and dry off my brush a little bit before I go to another color, but I don't wash them at all. Now I'm going to show you some other pumpkins that I've done in the past, and this particular one is going to be an easier version because I'm not going to add the extra dimension in the back. And I'm going to show some more of the pumpkins that I've done in previous videos because I think that when it comes to painting, the more you see it done, the easier it is to do. Now, if you want to get a little more creative, then this next project is one that you can do. And what I did was I just glued some scraps of old book pages to these boards. These have been connected together, but you could do them on just a single board. And this is also one that I've done in the past, but I'm just using some Mod Podge in a matte finish and gluing this onto the board. And then I'm gonna, once this is dry, I'm gonna paint a pumpkin over the top of that. And as you can see, I didn't have to cover the whole entire piece if I knew that I was gonna have a pumpkin over the top of it. And I'll show you in this one how you can layer one pumpkin in front of the other. And on this particular painting, I mixed some baking soda in with my paint to make it have some texture. And I probably did about half paint and half baking soda here, maybe a little less baking soda. But these pumpkins look really pretty if you add the texture in. Now these are some pieces of the 2x4 and a 2x6 that I've turned into pumpkins, and you just glue your stem on the top of these after you've painted them, and I'm just adding some little scrappy bows to the top of these. I hope you guys enjoy this video, and I hope to see you in the next. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great evening, and God bless you and your family.